Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us, Tucker Carlson, who hosts the wildly popular #1 show in his time slot, of course, for the month of November. And it's just so great to have him as a colleague and to join this great lineup at Fox. And he joins us now. Hey, Tucker.
Hey, Laura, how you doing?
I'm good. We did pretty well in November, thank God. I mean, we all won our time slots. So that's good.
Thank God. Amen.
Yeah, I mean, not that we live and breathe on the ratings every day, but let's face it, the ratings aren't nothing, and you've done really well. So congratulations on that, my friend.
Thank you.
Let's talk about where we are in this wild story. I watched you the other night when you were talking about your own experience in being falsely accused by someone, which was riveting television, by the way. But obviously, with someone like a Lauer, who's this giant in the media industry, he's gone. Rose is gone. O'Reilly's gone. What of this? And what about all these these women who say, well, they heard rumors, but they decided not to say anything, and now's our moment, and it's I am woman, hear me roar. Where are we here?
I mean, a lot of it's real, some of it's not. It's all frustrating, and it's dishonesty. Most people accused are guilty. I mean, as all of us know, but what's worth keeping in mind is that, there are some who are not guilty or whose circumstances are much more complicated than portrayed, and that's why due process is so important. Obviously, you know better than I as a former Supreme Court clerk, but I mean, there's a reason that, the Sixth Amendment gives you the right to face your accuser, for example, or that you're presumed innocent before proved otherwise. I mean, these safeguards reflect what we know about human nature, which is, people are generally honest, but they're not always honest. And when there's a lot at stake, you better be sure before you punish someone that he's actually guilty. And I guess for me, the measure is, are innocent people afraid right now? That's always the measure of whether or not something's a witch hunt. By the way, I'm always happy when abusers of power are brought to account, always, whether it's abusers of sexual power or economic power or any kind of power. When you abuse it, I think you should be punished. But when do we cross the line from justice into something French Revolution-y? And we know when people start, worrying about being punished for things they didn't do, and I'm concerned that we're approaching that line. So I hope we can back off a little bit. As for, Mika going on about that, I mean, please. I mean, a lot of the truth, you've been in the media a long time, is that the kind of people who go into the media are a self-selected group. Yep. They're showbiz people. They're extroverts. They're narcissists. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them are. And it's a weird dynamic where you have, it's a business mostly populated by women and younger women, and then you have older men as hosts, and they're already totally self-involved, and some of them aren't great people. And so it is kind of a recipe for bad behavior. It's just the structure of it. It's always been that way. I'm against it, by the way. I've got 3 daughters. I mean, I hate that stuff, but this is not a new thing. It's just kind of what, it's been that way for a while.
And, of course, the same thing in Hollywood with the power that producers and directors have, casting calls with, you got to do a little extra something. I mean, none of this is surprising. I think what always seems to concern me in all of this is, of course, the victims, but also changing the nature of a workplace in a way it's like a boomerang effect. So now one of my business friends today, this morning, we were chatting about our kids, and then we got to this topic, and he said, he's just a great guy, and he said, he's probably 69 years old or something. He has grown daughters, and he said, I was doing something for my charity in Philadelphia last night, and there's 2 journalism students. They're both young women who won this scholarship. I don't know what school it's at. I think it's at University of Pennsylvania. And they all wanted to take a picture with me because he was one of the big benefactors. And he said, as long as I'll put my arm around you, but you have to give me permission, and someone has to record the permission, because now, and he was kind of half joking, but half not. Because he said, I wouldn't travel alone with a woman on business today. He said, half of my firm is women. And I love female employees. They're great. They're the best employees, frankly. He said, but now I wouldn't do it. That's amazing.
Right. Well, there are all kinds of unintended consequences that might wind up harming some of the intended beneficiaries. I mean, it's a pretty, I'm afraid even to say any of this out loud, but just in one sentence, it's pretty common for older people in a business to want to help younger people, male or female. And I have heard older men say, gee whiz, I'd love to really help this person, but I'm afraid of how it might look. Well, who's the loser in that scenario? The young person, in many cases, a woman. And I don't know. I think anytime you empower lawyers more and HR professionals, I don't hate all lawyers or HR people, but I'm just saying if in the end the only result is that people who are, very far from the core business mission, who are legalistic, lawyers, if they're the ones who wind up with more power at the end of this, I don't know we can call that a victory. I really don't.
No. There was a question I asked Mitch McConnell last night about this topic of this slush fund and so forth. And James, do you have it? I want Tucker to hear this. Let's listen.
Are you in favor of unmasking the names of those in any type of settlement group over in the House?
Retroactively?
Well, there's a whole bunch of people whose names are unknown, even apparently to the congressman who is in charge of the committee that supposedly oversees.
Well, Laura, I think my attitude about that is I want to wait and see what the women of the Senate recommend on that and the other issues we're talking about.
So it could be possible that we'll never learn?
I'm going to wait and see what the women of the Senate recommend on that issue.
Why just the women of the Senate? I mean, isn't everybody?
I think they're in a very good position to take the lead. Some men are involved as well on both sides.
No. I mean, Tucker, take it away, but
I can't even wait for your question. That's so moronic that I can't even deal with it. I mean, look, law ought to apply universally to all people, regardless of sex or race. Period. So the idea that one sex gets to make decisions for everybody, that's grotesque. That's, by definition, a perversion of justice. Why would any normal person go along with that? I understand that women are primarily the victims of sex harassment, but that doesn't mean that men are primarily the victims of murder. Should the writing of laws against murder be reserved only for men? That's insane. What? That's crazy.
We're talking to Tucker Carlson here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Tucker, North Korea seems like we're getting perilously close to another military engagement in the Korean Peninsula. China's dispatched some top envoys. That looks like it got nothing accomplished. And now the left is continuing this drumbeat of how important it is to have Republicans step up to remove Trump from office because he's clearly not mentally fit, because he's sending out tweets from these somewhat unsavory people from Britain about Muslim violence against Christians and weighing in on the NBC sexual harassment issue. So he's mentally deficient. He might have dementia, and they need to act using the 25th Amendment. That's
these are the very
wallpaper.
Same people who got us. Yeah, these are the people who got us into the Iraq War. The ones who were calling Trump demented. They're the ones who killed Gaddafi. They're the ones who applaud missile strikes in Syria. All of it counterproductive and undermines American national interests, and they're always for that nonsense. So they are not credible, evaluators of this at all. I would say, totally independent of their judgment or lack of it, that I'm very concerned. I don't trust the White House to make wise decisions about North Korea. I don't. And I think that this kind of brinksmanship requires a kind of fine motor skills that, very few people possess. There's a lot of subtlety here. You could easily see how this spins out of control. The truth is we've lived with a nuclear armed Pakistan for 20 years. And, it's not preferable, but that's what we have. And it is preferable to a land war in South Asia or in Korea. So, let's calm down a little bit. I think the escalation of rhetoric is terrifying. I do think it starts to kind of build on itself, and
right.
It winds up in places where a lot of Americans could die, and I'm totally against that. And I don't.
The Rocket Man stuff is just idiotic. Let's face it. I mean, Rocket Man and then Kim Jong Un is calling him a doddering old man, and you could see that this. I call him the Cabbage Patch president, but that's why I'm not president. See, he looks like a Cabbage Patch doll. But so Kim Jong Un is. He has his own, he has his own mental issues, it seems, and he has to maintain this nationalistic fervor back at home. And you just talk to these Korean War veterans. I like to talk to them about what the Korean War 1952 felt like. And that's all you need to do is talk to them. We don't want to go there.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, there's no
upside.
Anybody you talk to who's gamed this out cannot tell you how it's going to end well. So yeah, it's terrifying. It's kind of happening in slow motion. I saw this with the Iraq War, and I'm broadly supportive of the White House's policy objectives, but do I trust Nikki Haley to steer a steady course for our country? Are you joking? No, of course not.
Yeah, neoconservative.
Yeah.
Well, the newest story, of course, is that they're closer than ever to hitting the United States. That's what they claim, including Washington, D.C. But it's kind of like weapons of mass destruction. We're closer to hitting the Washington. The rhetoric keeps. So then Nikki Haley. I felt like I was watching Colin Powell for a moment. It was kind of morphing.
A little bit. I mean, obviously, look, nobody wants the Kim regime to have nuclear weapons or intercontinental ballistic missiles or any of it's all like a disaster and upsetting. But let's just start at the end, which is a war with North Korea will kill untold hundreds of thousands. Many of them are allies and the innocent.
And our
There's
military.
no way around that. And so, that's not acceptable, period.
Tucker Carlson, it's always great to have you on. Thank you so much. We love your show, and every once in a while you can give me a few pointers on television. Okay, just
I don't think so. I'm making it up, but thank you, Laura. See you tonight.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Tucker Carlson here on the Laura Ingraham Show.